Hello and welcome to a session of the series Priceless, Find Your Worth in Christ. My name is Pablo Valencia. I thank you for joining me today. Thank you because it's the start of the week. I hope you're excited. I hope you're having a great, fantastic Monday right now. Thank you for joining me. And right now, make sure to hit that share button, to hit a like. We want others to find out about this great person of Jesus that is training us, that is equipping us for things to come. And I actually congratulate you. If you're listening to this message right now, it means that you find value in your future. And whether you think you're priceless or not, my hope, my prayer is that I don't convince you, that God convinces you that in His eyes you're priceless, and that there is worth inside of you, that you are worthy of His love. Now, thank you for joining me. Last week we started this series and we spoke on belonging to God's family. Now we're going to take a turn here, and in this second session of Priceless, this series, we will be looking at freed by God's forgiveness. This is the topic we're going to talk about this whole week, and as you can see, it's part 1, and we're going to look at John 8, verse 2 through 6. Now this is where we're throwing it back to the Gospels here, and this is a specific scenario where Jesus finds himself in a position where he needs to teach a lesson, not only to his disciples, but to the religious Pharisees that were there with him. And it says this: At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law of Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. And we're going to leave it there. Now, it's incredible how Jesus is teaching. He's minding his own business, right? And out of nowhere, these people come and they say, "Master, we caught this woman in adultery." Do you know what that means? That means they were on the lookout for her. That means that these Pharisees were on the lookout for this woman. They were scouting her out. They were chasing after her, and they finally caught her in the act of adultery. How horrid is that? That you have religious people chasing after you to see where and when you will sin. That's just horrible. But that's what they did. Now, first we have to realize, some people just like to throw rocks. Rocks of arrogance, rocks of condemnation, rocks of entrapment, rocks of judgment. Have you experienced those rocks before? People around you, your family members, the people in your community, your church members. We are very easy to judge and to throw rocks, and we live our lives just throwing and throwing and throwing. And they were probably hoping that Jesus gave them a straight answer. Go ahead and stone her away. Now, God has a standard of righteousness. And when we fail to live by this standard, it brings death and separation from God. In the end, no one gets away with sin. Now, this is why they threw out there, in the law of Moses, he commanded us to stone such woman. What do you say? You say, wow, that sounds pretty harsh. Well, it is harsh because it's a grave sin. Now, think of it. God gave Moses these laws because the people of Israel has spent more than 400 years in slavery in Egypt. Now, looking at the history, when they're freed from Egypt, they go out into the desert. Could you imagine what the problems on that desert must have been like? These people did not know how to live in freedom. They didn't know what was good or bad or acceptable in a society. So they just did not know. So God has to teach them how to live without sin. And that's why these harsh judgments. because he has to teach his people that some things are not permitted in the eyes of God. There's a verse in Romans that says that we are all separated because of sin from the presence of God, and that the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is salvation through Jesus Christ. So now we know that every time we sin and we don't repent from it, we are separated from God's presence. See, the objective of the devil is not to get you sinning, because that's a very weak objective. If the objective of your enemy was just to make you sin, that's a very weak objective, because we are all sinners all our lives. From the very beginning, our humanity, our DNA is to sin. No. The devil wins the fight when you sin and you don't turn to God. That's when he really wins. He doesn't win when you sin. He wins he wins according to what you do after you sin. Now, going back to this passage, we're looking at the way these religious people treated this woman. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus out loud, they told everyone what sin she was committing. Could you imagine if tomorrow you're forced to go out into the middle of your family, you go out into the middle of your church, you go out into the middle of your workplace, and people start judging you for your past mistakes? That's what this woman was feeling. Could we relate for a second to what she was feeling? Complete shame and guilt and dirt in her life. Complete grief and just very ashamed and very heavy. She was probably looking at the ground. She was probably crying. And then Jesus does something interesting. Even though these religious leaders treated this woman very harshly, Jesus takes his time, he bends down on the ground, and he starts to write in the sand. Now, we don't know what he was writing. Many theologians say that they would love to know what Jesus was writing. Some say he was writing the word forgiveness. Some say he was writing the word grace. Some say he was writing the word redemption. Whatever, either of these words sound amazing for him to write. But what I want you to realize is this. He took the time to not answer right away. He's silent. He bends down and he writes. He takes the time. Everyone is expectant. What will you say, Master? But he pauses. See, that's what happens when you and I sin. And the devil comes before. The devil, our accuser, says Paul in one of his letters. The devil is our accuser. Who does he accuse us with? He accuses us in front of God himself, just like this woman. Every time you and I mess up and we make mistakes, the devil tells our Father, look what your son is doing. Look what your daughter is doing. And he's accusing us. But Jesus doesn't reprimand us right away. He doesn't take action right away. Just like with this woman, he pauses and he thinks of us and he looks you in the eye and he just pauses. So before, one thing is to receive judgment from others, but another thing is to judge yourself. Could you imagine this woman judging herself right then and there in front of the Master? Sometimes, if others don't judge us, we are quick to judge ourselves. Don't judge yourself too hard. Yes, you've made mistakes. Yes, you've messed up a lot of times. Yes, you probably are messed up an hour ago. I don't care. Jesus pauses, he bends down and he writes, and leaves everyone in suspense. Fantastic movie. This would make a fantastic movie. He bends down and he leaves everyone in suspense to think. Everyone is thinking something different, I'm assuming. But he lets them all think. Today, I challenge you. I pray that first, you feel strengthened when others judge you very quickly. And second, you make a habit of not judging yourself very quickly. Because Jesus doesn't do it. That's just not his way. He pauses and he bends down and writes. Today, know that he's not up there just judging you, waiting to strike you down whenever you sin. He's not up there just waiting for the perfect time to teach you a lesson with sickness, with disease, with infirmity. That's not his way. So next time you sin, which might be in 10 minutes, might be in a week, I don't care. Next time you sin with your thoughts, with your mind, with your words, with your actions, take a moment like Jesus. Pause. And then approach him and ask for forgiveness. Don't wait too long. But just like Jesus took a pause, we can take a pause as well. And not be so quick to judge ourselves. So thank you for tuning in today. I'll leave you with this thought. Think about it today. This was the first session of this is the first part of this session, Freed by God's Forgiveness. We're going to look at this the whole week, the rest of the story. We're going to find out exactly what happened. But if you want to read the story over, John 8, verse 2 through 6. I pray that you're strengthened today. Have a fantastic start of the week. Know that you're priceless in the eyes of God. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.